I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Maggie Thompson is presenting the work titled The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch, written by J.J. Hurtak. Maggie Thompson is not validating nor supporting Hurtak's views, epiphanies, visions, beliefs, or words. Maggie Thompson is simply presenting the work as written and is attempting to translate this extraordinarily esoteric work to a common vernacular and understanding. Further, Maggie Thompson understands this work to be solely concerning the Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and while Hurtak views his work to be the key or keys to uniting all the world's people under one religion, namely Abrahamic, Maggie Thompson does not support this premise whole cloth. However, this work does give depth and insight into the connection of physics, cosmology, biology, and spirituality, which, for the seeker of divine truth, can be invaluable for the discovery of one's place in the universe, and that may be under the hierarchy of Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, or a hierarchy that exists above or beside such deities, or none altogether. Maggie Thompson implores all seekers of knowledge to, letter A, not accept what a person of authority tells you without validation. This includes looking at critiques and the opposing views with an open mind. Letter B, accept that religion, as well as science and politics, is presented as a means of indoctrination and is always presented with the biases of the overall field or system, the authors of texts, and the presenter, whose goals are to convince you of the, quote, truth, end quote, of their premise or premises. Letter C. It is possible to take insight, truths, and information from a biased work. Any body of work for the purpose of deeper meaning and knowledge must be carefully excavated and carved to glean wisdom. And letter D. No work or bodies of work that is believed by a large group or populace of people should be dismissed out of hand simply because you do not believe it. We live in a diverse time where religious belief takes center stage in the governing of the collected masses. To truly understand the barriers and gateways to your personal success and fulfillment, you must accept that believers of any kind can and will do what is necessary to meet their goals. Okay, hopefully I'm not having microphone issues tonight. Hopefully. Okay, so this key, the divine is the mind face of a loving father rejoicing in his creation. So that is the key. So hopefully for those who wanted the full text, you were able to go back and read it if that's what you wanted. So tonight, I'm going to read a little bit of the highlights so we understand what Hurtak is saying. But then we're going to use Disney's TVA to talk about it. We are going to use different religious beliefs and even philosophy about the nature of love. So this is going to be a long one with a lot of information. Okay. So we just want to take this esoteric work and make it not soteric so that we understand what he's trying to say and come to some greater truth. Let me say hi to a couple people. Hi, Adric. Thank you for being here first with the hashtag Pivot Point Wednesday. Marcus is here. Hello to you as well. And for everybody else who's watching who hasn't commented, thank you for being here. Welcome to the Best Live Tribe on YouTube. Okay, so this key, the mind face of God, that this is a loving Father rejoicing in his creation. Mind face, okay? I don't know why, but when I hear mind face, it reminds me of those scary movies where like something's pushing through the wall. You know, you see the hand pushing through the wall. It makes me think of like there's this face coming through the wall, the mind face. So this key focuses on the nature of divine love. Okay, the unification of consciousness and the role of compassion in cosmic evolution. So for anybody new here, I always have notes in front of me. So when you see me looking down, it's so that I stay on track. Okay, so a couple of highlights to understand or to just kind of glean what it is he's trying to say with a whole bunch of words. So first he says, Enoch explained to me, Jacob, that the divine is in all dimensions and exists within all universal intelligences. Planetary evolutions form the body extension of this mind force. So kind of like think about the wall, right? Space is coming through, and as it comes through, it creates things in, I guess, in physical reality. Okay. The key tells us that the mind face of the Father emanates the light necessary to make the human creation a tabernacle for the Maroth, which is the luminaries. Okay. So the motion of going into a new image and similitude is a respatialization into a greater vibration. Do you see what I'm saying about the words? With the sounding of a trumpet. Okay. So sounding of a trumpet, God's face goes through this light barrier. So it's not a wall, it's a light barrier, and makes things in the physical realm. Okay. So this is not speaking of when he talks about the trumpets and those kind of things, right? It's not speaking of physical judgment or physical doom or a physical odyssey, which Orthodox traditions have implied, right? It's a field of intelligence opening the sky with a commanding call, calling that chemical part of creation into a new intelligence, which is to go on to the next ordering of evolution. So he's saying, we at this time will understand what man has merely understood for centuries symbolically, metaphysically, and mythologically, that the physical body can have a light field put around it and be taken into any dimension that any higher intelligence desires. Okay. So he quotes Thessalonians a lot. He refers to Paul as Ascended Master Paul, but this is kind of his point, okay? Ascended Master Paul then tells us in 1 Thessalonians 5, 6 through 11. So then let us not sleep on as the rest do, namely those people who think this is it and continue to sleep in spite of what their inner nature tells them. But let us stay awake and keep our senses. For those who sleep are accustomed to sleep at night, and those who get drunk are usually drunk at night. But as for us who belong to the day, let us keep our senses and have on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet, the hope of salvation. Because God assigned us not to wrath, but to the acquiring of salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, keep comforting one another and building one another up, just as you are in fact doing. So it's a lot about love. Okay. And that love is the base that creates everything. Okay. So we got faith, hope, and love, right? That's why everybody has a sign everywhere. By the way, I was told on my Sunday video that it was informative or it was a good video or something like that, but that I laughed too much. If you're listening tonight, I am authentically me. I am not going to stop laughing if I find something funny. I'm just me. And I'm usually pleasant and in a good mood. So I'm not changing that. So hopefully you can get past the fact that I laugh and get information. So in Loki, we see, I don't know why nobody's commenting. There's a whole bunch of people here. Say hello, people. Either that I don't have comments off, I don't think. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I double checked. Atrix has too many critics. Yeah. So it was on the Kazarian video. So anyway, in Loki, so in Disney's Loki, if you've seen Loki, right? The TVA, the Time Variance Authority, is an organization that enforces the sacred timeline, okay, ensuring that all events flow in this predetermined order, right? It has to be on the sacred timeline. That aligns with this key 1-1-2, which discusses divine love as that force, as the sacred timeline. It's the force that brings all creation into harmony. The TVA's mission to maintain the sacred timeline is the metaphor for the role of divine love, and divine love is sort of like the clay, right? So these higher intelligences are using love to maintain the sacred timeline, okay? It unifies consciousness, aligns it with the divine plan. Remember, we talked about that before, the divine plan, and who is deciding the divine plan, right? So her talk says that divine love is the fundamental force, okay, the foundation. That's the thing that unites all aspects of creation, transcends time, space, and even individual identities or your ego, okay? So the TVA's management of the timeline and the variance, right? So when we get variant timelines and like there's a U on different timelines, so the TVA has to, cut those. It reflects the idea that all creation is interconnected and unified under one power. Now, he talks a lot about how love is the unifying force, right? Love is the thing. Love, love, love. He talks about love a lot. But what is love, right? Even landing on like one comprehensive, unified definition is really hard. English has the word love. Other languages have different words for different types of love. So we're just going to start with, as we try to define love, we're going to start with that love is a noun and a verb. Okay. It's a thing, right? It's a feeling, and it's an action, which is a showing. Just reminded me I wanted to. Okay. So and I'm going to give you a better definition at the end once we tie up all of these things. Okay. So as humans, hi y'all, Borgen. Thank you for being here. Okay. As humans, we seem to understand the feeling of love much more than the action of love. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Okay. We're going to break down both sides of those. So, because there's even different types of love feelings. So I'm going to use Greek terms, and the Greeks stole a lot of stuff from Egyptians, but these Greek terms I can pronounce. So we'll use the Greek terms, right, to define some of those. So we have eros, which is romantic love. We understand that. Storge, which is familial love. Philia, which is brotherly love. And then agape, which is unconditional love, right? So eros, romantic love, is conditional. Storge, which is, or I'm probably saying it wrong, storge, I don't know, storge. The familial love, conditional. Philia, brotherly love, conditional. And then we have agape, unconditional love. So we'll talk about those. Let's go through and just do a quick definition of those. So eros, romantic love, passionate love, right? Sometimes associated with desire, attraction, physical intimacy. It draws people together in romantic relationships. It's deeply personal and it's emotional. Hi, Adrian. Thank you for being here. He says, yo, I'm here. Let's go. Okay. So for the philosophers, for Plato specifically, right? Eros is a powerful force that can lead to physical and spiritual fulfillment, not just physical satisfaction. But this romantic love can also help you grow spiritually. He said that eros is a form of love that seeks beauty and truth, being honest, right? If you can find this eros with a person who matches with you and you can do this in a healthy way, it can lift you up spiritually and it can help you seek beauty and truth. So then storge or storge, Storge, but it's Greek, so I don't know how to pronounce that one. Storge is the natural affection and love that exists within families. Okay, so like between parents and children, between the siblings, it's also described as natural love, right? Like it just develops in families. It's also called instinctual love. You just love your family members, you love your family, right? Then we have philia, which is love based on mutual respect, okay? Shared values, deep friendship. It's described as brotherly love, okay? So best friends have this. That's what philia love is. It's very deep. It's a very deep friendship that is not romantic. It's a very deep love that is not eros, okay? It's the love between friends. You can have philia in a family, like with your cousins, you can have this deep mutual respect, shared values, deep friendship with family members. And it goes from that storge to philia. Okay. These are like your comrade in arms, it's like when you call your best friend your brother or you call your best friend your sister, right? Because it's deeper than that. Okay. It grows out of shared experiences, trust, and reciprocity. Okay. So it's a pretty deep love. Aristotle described philia as a virtuous and essential form of love that binds communities and relationships, right? You have to have this filial love in the groups that you're in the connections that you have to have that trust and reciprocity to bring communities together, to bring groups together. Okay. So it is rooted in mutual care, mutual understanding. We love each other, brother, like that kind of thing. Now, agape, the unconditional love. Now, I had this conversation before that conditional love is not inherently bad. Positive psychology sort of, in trying to be so positive, demonized certain feelings and certain things that were neutral before that happened. Conditional love means I can love you like a brother, but if you do something real skanky or you do something to one of my family members or you just trample on my boundaries all the time or you just keep doing this, that, and the third, then I'm going to remove myself from you, right? There are conditions to me and the way I feel. Okay. Now, unconditional, right? The agape. Hi, Inspired Truth. Thank you for being here. Agape is unconditional. There are no conditions. I feel the love no matter what you do to me or anybody else, right? It is selfless and it's universal love. It transcends personal attachment and extends beyond actions or even worthiness. I love you because I love you. That's it. Whether we're together or not together, I always want the best for you. I love you. You screw up, still love you. And I'm going to tell you, I still love you. This love isn't necessarily rooted in emotions, right? It's not super emotional or passionate. It's not conditional. It's just this pure, radiant energy, this love that transcends time, space, and the self. So in Christianity, Jesus calls for this agape, right? When he's talking about the love he has for people and in how he prescribes people loving one another, right? He's loving everybody unconditionally, no matter what their worthiness, their actions, who they are, whether they're family or not, doesn't matter. And then he tells people, love one another as I have loved you. That's his prescription, is this agape, right? In Buddhism, they teach metta, and it's metta, which means loving kindness, right? It is about cultivating unconditional love and compassion for all beings with discrimination. Okay. So any being that has any sort of discrimination, which you can make the argument that it's anything that's alive, to treat them with unconditional love and compassion. So not just love, compassion. Okay. In Hinduism, they teach prema, Prema, which is divine love. Okay. It's the love that connects the individual soul, which they call the Atman, um, different than the Adam Kadmon, kind of. The Atman with the universal soul, which is the Brahman. Okay. So this divine love is this feeling and this connection that your soul has with the universal soul. Okay. Plato and Plotinus explored the idea of a higher universal love like that, that transcends the physical world and connects all beings to the divine, right? Plato talks about that in his work called Symposium, if you want to read more about Plato and Plotinus's works. So those are the feelings of love, right? So what is the action of love, right? Like what is the outer symbology? I was just talking to somebody today and we're saying in this day and age, our outward action of our spiritual state is politics, because we've sort of been so far removed from our spirituality that our outward display of our inward belief system is now called political science. So, for love, what is the outward action? What are the outward actions of this inward feeling, right? As above, so below, as within, so without, right? It's all about balance. So, the action of love is the outward expression of love, the tangible manifestation of that feeling into the world. I'm going to make something out here based on a feeling in here. Okay. Now, that can be, I love architecture and I build a building. Okay. So it's just the outward manifestation of the inward state. So the feeling of love is subjective. It is an individual feeling, right? It's in your heart, it's in your mind, and it almost seems to happen to us rather than choosing to feel it. Like, oh, I want to be in love with that person. Have we ever heard before, like, this person's great on paper. Like, I wish that I fell in love with them, but I didn't. Like, it seems to happen to us, the feeling. It's so subjective and it seems pretty random. Okay. Especially the eros, the romantic, right? But we also don't choose to love our family. So without action, the feeling of love remains in the abstract. Okay. It doesn't impact our relationships or the world in any type of meaningful way. It's just something I think and feel on the inside. Okay. The action of love is what we do to show love, care, and compassion to others. It is intentional, it is deliberate, and it requires effort, even when the feeling itself isn't immediately guiding it. Sometimes let's talk filial love. You're talking to your best friend, you're having a great time, and you just hug them. The feeling just guided that action. But there are times you love somebody and you're mad at them, but you're still going to show that you want to take care of them. Let's say, you're still going to show some actions, right, about this love. It doesn't always have to be guided by the feeling. It's objective, it's visible, it's measurable, meaning other people's can see and experience love vicariously, which is actually helpful for people's mental health, which is great. So these acts of love are enduring, they are transforming, and they do create real change and real growth in relationships, communities, and the world. These acts of loving kindness do strengthen relationships. It does strengthen connections, which is pretty great to think about, right? It doesn't take all that much effort, right? To show love, to show kindness, to show compassion, right? To put something tangible into the world that other people can see and experience to show this inner feeling and this inner state that you have. And you can see how it would strengthen a relationship. So these actions exist as a sign of how much you value the relationship. This is why it can present outside the feeling, right? You're going to act lovingly even when you're angry. Have you guys ever seen that meme where it's like an old guy, it's raining, he and his wife are sitting on a park bench and you can tell he's kind of pissed, but he's holding the umbrella over her. He's being rained on. He's holding the umbrella over her and they're both angry. That's kind of that when you're showing the love, it's not always guided by the immediate feeling. You don't have to have the passion and the roller coaster and all that all the time, right? Love is pretty comforting, soft, warm, kind, considerate. It doesn't have to be wackadoo, as I would say. So think about it like this. If the feeling of love is the spark, right? It's the spark towards wanting to make this connection, then the action of love is the flame that keeps it going, right? And so when you're in relationship and you're in connection, you have to feed the fire, right? Both of you. So the feeling of love ignites the spark, the action of love is the flame. And when we give to those things, then we can maintain that feeling of love and that connection and that loving kindness and all of those things moving forward. So acting lovingly strengthens and deepens the feelings of love. Isn't that neat? It sort of feeds itself. The engine gets going and it feeds itself. So in psychology, we call this pro-social behavior, meaning that it has benefit for both the giver and the receiver. Okay. So I have a question for you guys. Who in your life always showed up for you, always demonstrated their love for you? Kind of, even if it was just a taste of unconditional love, that unconditional positive regard. Ooh, sorry, just got eyelash in my eye. Who did that for you? Because the hope always is that everybody gets to experience that, especially because then that helps you to be able to show it when you want to show it. Like for me, there were several people, a few people who, Auntie being one, and Auntie's not here tonight. She's not going to be here tonight, but my favorite auntie, always unconditional love, always unconditional positive regard. Didn't matter. So she was always the one you wanted to call when you really screwed up because she wasn't going to beat you over the head. But the primary person who showed me unconditional love was actually my grandfather. My grandfather always had something positive to say about me. He's the one that taught, some metaphysics stuff, and he always would he knew I liked to have these deep conversations, right? And maybe I got that from him, I don't know, but I would go over to grandma and grandpa's and all the kids are playing and they're all doing all these other things. And I always wanted to sit with grandpa because grandpa and I, from a very young age would talk metaphysics. We would talk about all of this stuff that I talk about. And it was such a point of connection for me. When we talk about the action of love, him knowing me and me knowing him and us having this deep conversations, those were acts of love. That was us showing each other love by having these really cool, deep conversations that we both loved. We enjoyed those things. And, only until very recently, I haven't experienced that again until very recently. And he passed when I was 15. So, um, I guess, when you find that again, it brings up those feelings of love again. So Adrian says, my other mother in Houston, yeah, I gave you that feeling of always showing up, always demonstrated their love for you, is unconditional, you know. Do you guys think, though, and replay gang, put it in the comments. I will see it. I try to answer everybody unless you're being mean, and then I just sort of ignore it. But do you think, like, if you think, even people who didn't answer, just think about, that feeling you got from that person. Think about that feeling, okay? Do you think that feeling can become a healing force for the world? Like, if we could cultivate that feeling, if we could make it contagious, if we could utilize that feeling more often, if we could get other people to be in that mindset, do you think that that is healing for some of the ills of the world? I don't want to totally sound like all love and light and toxic positivity, but because there has to be balance. But I do think that that unconditional love can be very healing to people, especially mentally, especially mentally. So, end of the day, TBA. Okay, the TBA may control the timelines. Hertog's higher intelligence may control reality, and some force on Earth may be controlling your lived experience right now. But they cannot control the love within you. By embodying compassion and love, we create our own destinies. Okay. So you are a participant in this great cosmic story. You just have to think about, who do you want your character to be? All right. Thanks, guys. That's the end of that. This coming Sunday, we're going to have Who Are the Khazarians Part 2. We may actually end up with a Part 3 because so many people have been giving me such great information. 99% of it confirming what I already had. But it's helping me to look more, get some more stuff, add more to it. So, we talked a lot in Khazarians 1 about like where they came from. Khazarians 2 are going to sort of be where they went and how we see that happen. And if we don't get it finished, Khazarians 3 will be, how is this manifesting in the world right now? What's happening? And all of this kind of goes into a later show on bloodlines, which I keep talking about. So all of these who are the or who were the shows are feeding into that bigger show that will happen. So hopefully I can see you there for that one. If not, I will see you next week where we continue the Keys of Enoch. The full readings will be available on Monday. Oh my gosh, it is. It's only 36 minutes in, Adric. It is a quickie. And I thought I had so much information to give. Although I did kind of think people would say stuff that they might argue with me, that it sounds a little Pollyanna. But, you know, we all have common interests in the live tribe. We all kind of look at things a certain way. And so while there is some dose of skepticism that love heals all, I have skepticism that love heals all. I'm more about balance, like love heals all, but also try me. So balance. So I appreciate you guys being here. I apologize that it's a quickie. I usually try to keep it to an hour, but now we can reference this for all different forms of love. And we'll be back next Wednesday for some more Keys of Enoch. So now I'm going to show you my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together. Bye. Psych. Hold that thought, because I totally forgot to give you guys that definition at the end. So for those of you who stayed on, this is like a Marvel movie. There's a little bit at the end. So the highest form of love, based on all the research that's been done, love is wanting that person to have every opportunity they need to reach their full potential and the freedom to reach it or not. I.e., freedom is the highest form of love, and it applies to the love you give to yourself or to other people. Okay. So for those of you that were still on, or anybody that stays this long, you got the definition. All right. Bye, guys.